perfect means for the spiritual education of the wider population of all classes. This period saw a powerful revival of the Vedic culture. The Puranas retained the essential truths of the Vedas, but created new forms of expression. The Vedic pantheon of nature gods was replaced by the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva and their female consorts. The Vedic house of fire and sacrifice was replaced by temples and deity worship. This period saw the birth and growth of beautiful and ornate temple architecture in India. They appealed to the emotions of the heart and aesthetic delight expressed through sacred sculptures and designs. The deity worship, rituals, and ceremonies infused the spiritual ideals into the mass consciousness. The presence of the divine seated in the heart of humanity became a popular understanding. Devotion became a popular method for spiritual realization. It is during this period the story of the 10 avatars of Vishnu came into prominence. The sequence of avatars provided an easy framework for the masses to comprehend the notion of spiritual evolution and the manifestation of the divine in humanity. Buddha was also integrated into the list of avatars. The ancient Vedic and Upanishadic cosmology found a new expression in the form of the 7 worlds of Puranic cosmology. This set the foundation for the emergence and growth of Bhakti movement in India, orienting the whole civilization and its emotions towards spiritual realization. This evolutionary movement continued to flourish through many saints across India over the next millennia. The perfect outcome of this evolution can be found in the philosophy and religion of divine love promulgated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Around 600 CE onwards, the center of consciousness shifted further downward. At the spiritual and religious front, this corresponded to emergence of Tantra, complementing the Puranas. Tantra brought focus on Shiva and Shakti as the cosmic creative couple. However, the seed idea was already there in the Vedas as Nri and Guna. After the Vedic age, it became the Purusha and Prakriti of Sankhya philosophy during the Age of Reason. By 600 CE, these archetypal ideas evolved and got integrated into Shiva and Shakti of Tantra. The union of Shiva and Shakti as the central process of spiritual realization came to the forefront through Tantra. Once again, the ancient wisdom was recast into new forms, suitable for the new evolutionary stage of the Indian civilization. They took up the creative power of the life energy to turn it towards the divine realization. Tantra traced the cosmic creative process arising from Nada Bindu, the primal seed sound. They traced the geometry, rhythm, and process of the Bija mantras, the seed sounds. It was also the time when Indian mathematics reached its glorious classical age. Tantrics explored and systematized the processes of creative energy or Shakti working through nature. They mapped and organized the knowledge of the chakras and nadis of the subtle body. They developed a process of awakening the Kundalini, the divine force asleep in human nature, accelerating human evolution. They developed extensive mastery over the occult forces beyond physical nature. Besides spiritual liberation, they brought in the aspect of cosmic enjoyment as a natural progression in the spiritual evolution of humankind. They synthesized the spiritual relationship between man and woman, humans and nature. Even the sexual and sensual dimension of life was brought into the fold of spiritualization. By the 8th century, even the Bhakti movements had begun to turn the romantic and sensual energy towards the divine realization. Over the centuries, both Tantra and Purana mixed together and became the most living and enduring movements of the classical age of India. They had the most abiding result in the mind of the people. They opened the general mind of the people to a higher and deeper range of inner truth and experience and feeling. The centuries that followed saw the rise of massive temple architecture across India. By 1000 CE, India's cultural and spiritualizing influence was well established across Southeast Asia. Indian cosmology and systems of knowledge shaped large temples and cultures across Asia. It was the universal nature of India's religions, philosophy, science, art and technology that attracted the Asian neighbors. The Indian universities were sought after by the students from all the neighboring countries. India's extensive maritime trade became the vessels of cultural transmission. India's spiritual influence spread far and wide. After spiritualizing the mind, the emotions, and the dynamic energy, the center of consciousness of the Indian civilization shifted further down around 1100 CE. The root chakra or the Muladhara corresponds to the physical consciousness according to Sri Aurobindo. In the long historic process, this shift brought forth the body consciousness and its spiritualization as the next stage in India's mission. It emerged naturally as a continuation of the ongoing development of Tantra and the knowledge of the chakras. The divinization of the body became the field of research and mastery for the yogins of India. To accomplish this, Hatha Yoga was developed and systematized based on the ancient wisdom. Yogic asanas and related processes were developed and practiced to master the body, its health, and longevity for a spiritual life. For a Hatha Yogin, the body is not a mere mass of living matter, but a mystic bridge between the spiritual and the physical being. He does not view it with the eye of the anatomist or physiologist, but describes and explains it in terms of the subtle body behind the material frame. Hatha Yoga gave to the soul in the physical body the power, the light, the purity, the freedom, and the ascending scales of spiritual experience. However, they were not able to discover the true characteristic, method, and power of spirit in the body that could transform and divinize the body. The methods of Hatha Yogins were physical, laborious, and difficult, and demanded most of their time and energy. They had to withdraw from society, and the utilization of the powers gained for the welfare of the world became either impracticable or were extraordinarily restricted. On the other hand, the consciousness of the civilization was on its further downward movement into the subconscious ranges that were more dull, passive, and steeped in inertia. At the same time, the philosophy of illusionism was gaining popularity in India. The world was increasingly seen as a dream, an illusion, Maya, to be discarded. The yogins withdrew from society in pursuit of individual solitary salvation. Indian civilization was steadily falling into a state of inertia and a dream state of sleep. Renunciation of the worldly life became the norm. The civilization withdrew from its outward expansion and turned into a state of inward absorption. This made possible the Islamic invasions from Central Asia to gain deep inroads into the Indian subcontinent. And India couldn't defend herself from looting and destruction of her temples and universities. By 1500 CE, most of India came under foreign rule. The Vijayanagara and Maratha empires were the last powerful creative outbursts of Indian civilization sourcing from her ancient stream. However, they couldn't prevail against the invasions. The Indian culture became increasingly conservative. Meanwhile, materialism and modern science was rising up in Europe. The rising powers of Europe found their way to India. The British colonization of India was even more devastating than the Islamic invasions. The British not only looted India's material wealth, but also destroyed her economy and the ancient education system. By 1900, India was not only materially poor, but also culturally devastated. Instead of conquering and spiritualizing the body, the yogins looked at the body as a burden to be discarded in pursuit of the spirit. Spirituality became a withdrawal and rejection of material life. In the spiritual history of India, the first period was luminous with the discovery of the spirit by the Vedic rishis. Their keyword was yajna. This was followed by the Upanishadic rishis, who rediscovered the Vedic experience but gave it a new form. Their keyword was Brahman. The power of intuition was their means, and they laid the spiritual foundation of Indian civilization. Upon this foundation was built the second period, which laid the intellectual and philosophical foundations of Indian culture. It was an age of reason that spiritualized the mind of India. Their keyword was dharma. Upon this foundation of dharma was the luxurious flowering of Indian civilization into elaborate details of an opulent living. This was the third period in which Puranas and Tantra flourished. If Bhakti was the keyword to the Puranas, Shakti was the keyword to Tantra. They spiritualized the emotions, the life will, and the life of sensations of the civilization. It was the age of devotion and the age of power in India. By this time, what began with a small group of rishis had spread to cover the whole civilization and the wider Asia. The last period saw the attempt to spiritualize the body with the power of Hatha Yoga. However, this still awaits the discovery of the true characteristic method and power of spirit in the body. This period also saw the decline of Indian civilization under the impact of foreign invasions. The European colonization was a wake-up call upon India. Whatever temporary destruction this impact of European life and culture caused, on the positive side, it led to three needed impulses. It revived the dormant intellectual and critical impulse. It rehabilitated life and awakened the desire of new creation. It put the reviving Indian spirit face to face with novel conditions and ideals, and the urgent necessity of understanding, assimilating, and conquering them. India's rebirth began with social reformation movements with a spiritual orientation. Poets sourced their inspiration from ancient roots and promoted a new vision of Mother India. Artists gave birth to new forms of the ancient spirit. The ancient spiritual experience was recovered by three spiritual giants from Bengal. Sri Ramakrishna realized in himself all the spiritual wisdom of the ages. Swami Vivekananda's speech at Chicago was the most powerful message to the world that the giant Shakti of India was waking up. Sri Aurobindo awakened the will to freedom in India upon a spiritual foundation. He saw that the freedom and rebirth of India was only a step on the way, and that there was a greater role for India in the world. The world was heading for an evolutionary crisis. The human mind had reached a stage in its evolution. It had to go beyond the power of rational intelligence to a greater consciousness. But the ancient wisdom of India was fragmented and scattered into many schools of yoga that were incompatible. Sri Aurobindo recovered the secrets of the Veda through his own spiritual experiences. He mapped the entire spiritual history of India, synthesized its various schools of yoga, and gave birth to integral yoga, a yoga for the evolutionary transformation of human nature. He discovered the key to the divinization of the body, which the Hatha Yogins and Tantrics had missed. His integral yoga was in its principle a taking up and summarizing and completing of the ancient historic process that had been unfolding in India. It is a yoga that brought together the spirit and matter, individual and collective evolution for a divine life on earth. Sri Aurobindo synthesized the Eastern and Western ideas of evolution and boldly declared that humans are transitional beings. They are not final. Evolution continues and humans will be surpassed. This is the future awaiting humanity. This is an unprecedented adventure of consciousness on earth, and India is destined to play a leading role in this adventure. We do not belong to the past dawns, but to the noons of the future.